All right. So let me give you a breakdown on this thing, Spencer. I want to show you what I'm doing. Now, please forgive, as Doc Brown says, the crudity. Well, he usually says the crudity of this model. I mean, the crudity of my workspace out here. I've been extremely disorganized. This is my studio, and I have a workshop too, but it's trashed as well. As I work on stuff, I have a sort of a Godzilla energy where I destroy everything in my path. But I'm not organized. I'm technical enough to be dangerous. But let me show you what I've done here. This is the way this is looking right now. You can see my paper rollers that I put in. Now, I want to show you the cutting area here. So the roller, for the pinch roller that I ended up using, I found these little, these are for a scanner that uses a pinch roller as well. And so what I did is I got these don't quite fit on an 8mm rod, but if you heat them up, you can slide them on, and then when they cool down, they lock into place. And then for the pinch roller itself, there's a 608 bearing here in the middle, and then I've got it wrapped in electrical tape to use as a tire because the tolerance was a little, there was too much space because this is smaller than your discs. So I wrapped it in electrical tape, and that works. And then my weights, as I said, I used washers, 5/16 washers, and I locked them in place with electrical tape for now. And it'll click in here. Now I need to secure this a little better. I also have these 3D printed shaft collars that I need to tighten down. I can make these in any size, of course, because they're 3D printed. I've got my little loaf pans, and then on the front for the paper guide, what I ended up doing, I took the rear paper guide, and then I ended up making it wider, and then doing the same thing with the dowel rods because I like the way that worked, and it seems to hold everything pretty steady, especially once it's all once it's all threaded through. But that's kind of it. I've got my steppers on each end to drive these brackets. Here, these brackets I didn't modify the brackets themselves. I just took a 608 bearing. I printed a spacer because it's almost the right size, but it was just a little like it's like 1.5 millimeters wall thickness on this. Will fit just about perfectly. And then this front one, I made new spools for this. These have the split, so when you slide the tube on here and slide it onto the rod, it'll lock in place. And I had made one for the end too. This one's riding on discs, but it kind of rotates freely on the shaft, which might be better or worse. This is my attempt to keep the paper from unspooling. I still haven't figured out. Kind of a paper path issue. As this moves forward, it'll unwind and it'll slop. So I'm thinking about projectors and the way they pull film and keep the whole thing under tension to keep things from unwinding. So I don't know if I could put a pull bar that's elevated on either end, so if it goes in either direction, it doesn't come unspooled. That's kind of what I've been thinking about. I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Oh. The other thing is, because of the way I did this, when I mounted it, I didn't elevate this on a platform. It's just put right on the baseboard. So our extrusion sits, it's locked in place by these brackets here. That holds down these loaf pans. But I could, cut something else out and raise it a little bit. But that works, except then that made all of these out of alignment. So what I did is, once the motor was in place with the roller, I just measured the height. And then I took these, and then I measured, when I extended them, because I redesigned them a little bit and made them a little bit taller. So they all sit right on the level, in alignment with the gap between, the paper path, basically. So I measured that with a caliper, and, it all kind of, there's a little bit of room for adjustment, but they just mainly just sit right on the board there. That's kind of how it works. I'm going to thread it real quick and just let you show you the movement. All right, so here my paper is moving, okay? And now I'm getting some slop coming off of here. Yeah, that's a problem. All right, I have this moving backwards right now because I'm re-rolling the paper. I find that if I roll it back and forth, it straightens the paper out. I'm getting a little bit of crinkle here, but it'll straighten out eventually because I've done this before. This is a new roll of paper. But what I'm finding is it's better to disconnect the roller that's in the opposite direction. So I have it connected with these little parallel modules right now, but I can unplug one. And when I say if I'm like rewinding it, if it moves back and forth like an inch, it won't matter so much because the pinch roller will take care of that. But it starts to slop if it moves too far. If I were moving it this way and I had this motor connected, it would be driving this one and it would be pushing the paper out. That I have to figure out to resolve, or I may come up with a switch or something to only make these one directional. But that's kind of my idea. Now I'll run this back the other way once this gets done, and you'll see it advance in the proper direction. One thing I'll note too, I originally wanted these spools to be tight. This one kind of rotates freely on its shaft. That's actually working out to my advantage because of the fact that, you know, it wants to spin on this diameter at a higher rate, like the outside of a wheel. But if you, on this one, it's tight. So I may try to loosen this up. I 3D printed these spools and I didn't end up using them on the back because the ones I made for the back cracked. So I might replace this with something looser. That'll keep this motor from skipping, but it'll keep pulling it in the right direction as long as the pinch roller's driving it. But, alright, here's the forward direction. You can hear this skipping. It's pulling a little too hard. So I'm going to loosen the spool up. That's a problem. It's starting to bunch the paper up because of that. Alright, now I'm just going to replace my fancy, Now I'm just going to replace my fancy spools here with wooden spacers and these discs like on the rear roller. This should allow this thing to rotate more freely and keep it from getting too tight. Alright, there that is. Now this thing will slide just enough so I can adjust it, but it still holds in place if I don't. So that'll work. It should pull on the paper while it's being moved by the pinch roller without pulling against the pinch roller at this point. That's the idea. That's what it was doing before I replaced those other spools. So we're going to try that. Alright, now we have movement, and this isn't pulling too bad against the pinch roller, so it's not buckling. Well, it's going to straighten out, but it's still kind of crinkling a little bit, but we'll get there. It is moving more or less the way I want it to. This paper has been rolled back and forth a bit, so it may be a little dodgy, but if I were to roll this back and forth, I'm confident it would straighten out again.